Are we live now?
Should be.
Okay, it looks like
You're
it's 6
live.
p.m. Parimal is joining me. If you're just tuning in, we are an on-time airline, as I often have said in the past. My cat, I've got a cat now. This is a COVID cat, and he's just a little one. And he's really tuned in to me that he doesn't like me at already.
That's a cute cat. And what's the cat's name?
I'm too embarrassed to tell you. It's not my calling, but Twinkle Toes is what he's known as.
Twinkle Toes, that's wonderful.
And we were saying we have a little female cat for the longest time, but something dropped and now we know we have a little boy kitty.
Ah, there you go. Well, here's our little cat. His name is Aspen.
Hey, you know, if you're looking for dating a woman, I think you don't play up the fact that you've got a cat, because that's usually the first sign that this dog doesn't hunt. If you're so sensitive that you got a cat rather than like a pit bull, maybe women are going to shy away. So don't advertise the fact that you're looking for a lady in your life and you've got a cat. That's in fact not your cat.
It is true. This dog doesn't hunt, but this one, Aspen, my son's cat, is a blue Russian 5-month-old. And we think he's a boy, but I have to check it out just to make sure. I don't know.
Well, it's not that really hard. If it's facing north, look south. Anyway, so thank you for joining us, Parimal. Parimal's been very busy over the last couple of months. He's purchased a home and he's moving from Redmond into Seattle. Tell us just briefly about what you've been up to.
Yes, well, it's been an exciting update in my life. You know, it's a 100-year-old home, which means it's a home that is older than all the other homes I've ever owned put together. Wow. And I just bought this. It's in Seattle. It's in a very interesting little area called Montlake, which is right by the Portage Bay. So it's a nice little area, a lot of wetlands nearby, nature, and still good access to, you know, Microsoft and Seattle and Amazon and whatnot. So I'm just, you know, excited about it. I'll have you over out as soon as I'm done some hardwoods and refinishing and everything else, but that's just been keeping me busy for the last, I'd say, one or 2 months. And as a result, I've taken a bit of a break from Earth as Our Witness, but we do plan to start that soon, like in a month or so, because there's a huge pipeline we want to start, obviously.
Yep. And I think Gabriel Jacan is anxious to do one of these with us, and he's got a great collection of children of the world. So I think that will be a great contribution. Yes. And I've been busy getting operated on. I had foot surgery a couple of weeks ago, and in a week and a half, I've got shoulder surgery. And then eventually I'm going to have my eyes adjusted so I don't have to wear these glasses all the time, because as a photographer, you know, I take them off when I'm looking through the viewfinder. And I know many people in this audience can commiserate with this fact. Yes. And then I step on these glasses, or I sit on them, or I lose them, or I scratch them. So I'm going to have cataract dash surgery to correct for my distance, and then I'll have readers for when I need to read something.
There you go. There you go. Well, I just hope in all this little work that they're doing on you, they don't accidentally hit the creative nerve. You know, like, where's the photography talent gone suddenly?
Exactly.
And you know what happened.
Well, keeping aware of our time too, is, you know, generally with Art Wolf Live, different from tequila time. I'm not drinking tequila, A. And B, we usually have the center of this event with a little video, but I don't have a video because I've been under the operating table for the last couple of weeks. No excuses. The weather's been bad. I went down to Mexico, Oaxaca, and I think next month I will have part of my presentation about Oaxaca and the charm of the place in southern Mexico.
Nice, nice.
And in fact, we will be leading a Oaxacan Day of the Dead photo tour next November, end of October and early November. We'll talk about that a little later. So, and I've been working on multiple book projects and keeping, you know, working on the files. So I've not been sitting around, but we've been looking at the New York Times to glean some interesting articles. And so tonight I've got 3 different little sections of slides that are kind of married to news headlines as of late. And so I will share those with you.
I got to say, I enjoy the new format, which is, not just the video, but also you show your work based on themes that are topical, relevant in the world right now. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what you got today.
And I've got trustee Kyle right next to me who will get me ready to share screen. So I'm going to share the screen.
Cool.
And I think I've done this right. And where am I? Okay, so that didn't quite work the way I expected. That's why you got a job.
Oh, you're here.
All right. Okay. So, this is the January 25th Art Wolf Live. And I'll start with Tonga because Tonga, as people have been paying attention to Parimal, know that just a week ago on Saturday, the biggest volcanic eruption in the last 100 years rocked the earth. And Tonga, which many people would not, they may have heard of Tonga, but they really are a little hazy as to where it is. I've been to Tonga twice over the years. It's a very remote set of over 100 islands that is a good flight, probably 3 to 4 hours north of Auckland, New Zealand, to give you a sense. It's right out in the middle of the Southern Pacific. It's an island, as I say, made up of a myriad of tiny islands, a country made up of a myriad of tiny islands. And 60 miles north of the capital, this island that had formed over the past decade literally blew up. And it created a mushroom-like cloud. Let me read some statistics because it's quite impressive. So it went 40 miles, it's 40 miles north of the Tongan capital. And it was on the island, and here we go. It's called Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai volcano. That's
wow. That's
the one reason I'm not drinking tequila tonight. I would not have been able to get through that. So the mushroom cloud, the umbrella-like cloud, was 300 miles across. It's one of the largest ever recorded. The material was injected 9 miles into the stratosphere. Fortunately, the scientists don't believe that it's going to affect the world climate, which is, if you pay attention, what a lot of scientists believe ended the reign of the dinosaurs.
Yes.
Because volcanics, it killed the plant life, which is what these big dinosaurs were feeding on for the most part. Okay, so waves hit Australia, New Zealand, Japan, as well as South America and North America. So those waves that just move across the ocean in breakneck speed. It did take very long before they're washing up on to the shores of California and south to South America. Sounds, the sound traveled. And some people claim they heard the boom in Alaska, which was pretty amazing if that's true. 3 people unfortunately died as the ensuing tsunami hit the islands. But that's pretty remarkably safe compared to the fact that the volcanic ash affected 3/4 of the island's populations. So it was a profound volcano. Now, the reason I've gone there is my good friend Darren Jew, who lives in Australia, and his friend Jasmine lead photo tours there for the humpbacks that return to these islands later on in the year. And that was fortunate as well, that the humpbacks weren't there. So these are photos that I've taken out of the plane window as I've flown up to Tonga to go on a dive trip with Darren.
Nice. And, speaking of Darren, we have had him and Jasmine on Earth is Our Witness. What beautiful people. They work so hard in taking their clients and photographers to Tonga and to see the whales.
Yeah, they're great people, and people that are involved in nature and wildlife photography tend to be great people. Now, I'm an exception, of course, but for the most part, people are very nice. So, and now we're landing on the island from which we go out on boats, and you can just see how the reefs are right off the shore, and then it drops. And the humpbacks need pretty deep water to do what they do up there, and often they're up there breeding. And so they return from the south every year in the middle of, I think, probably July and August, and they breed. And here they are above a very familiar sight for me because I do a lot of work with humpback whales up in Southeast Alaska. That population of whales comes up from Hawaii every year. And the Eastern Pacific of the humpback population has gone from 1,900 to 26,000 over the last couple of decades. So it's a great recovery story that people need to latch onto these positive stories. And I know this because I'm doing a book on international wildlife during the Anthropocene and how animal life is being affected by climate change, but also increased human presence. But it's not all a negative story. And I'll talk about that in the introduction of that book. But this is, again, a pretty familiar sight of humpbacks breaching, coming out of the water. And it's a great sight and a thrill every time I've seen that. But on that particular trips, I was down there to get in the water. And though it looks like I'm scuba diving, I'm really using a snorkel. So I'm on the surface looking into the depths of the water. And this is what Darren has called a heat run, where many males are kind of following a female in heat. And so you get these runs. And I only had one opportunity when I was down there. Darren and Jasmine have great photos of this, but these are my contributions.
Beautiful.
And, you know, it's a thrill to be in the ocean and to see these great creatures coming by. And in recent...
Can I ask you a question, Art?
Yeah.
Do you get when you're underwater, do you get a sense of scale of these animals?
You know, no, because you can see well over 100 feet. And I've looked down and saw 100 feet below me a humpback just resting on the sand. And it looks so small, but without that whale there, I wouldn't have a sense of depth. And, you know, things get magnified in the water as well. So until they're really close, it still is distorted. And then you're looking through a dome port and a wide angle, and that further confuses your eye.
Interesting.
So what's interesting about these humpback, it's just come to light in the last or recent knowledge, is scientists were trying to figure out that they bubble net feed. In other words, they come up out of the depth and they, with their mouths agape, and they grab smaller krill or smaller herring, and who knows what the population down in Tonga is eating, but it's small animals. And so they feed and they sustain their weight by gobbling huge amounts of krill at the same time, or small fish at the same time. But how are they not drowning? Because their mouths are open. And it was just recent knowledge that there's a kind of a fatty muscle at the back of their throat that closes when they're gobbling up all these animals, and it keeps the lungs from getting, you know, they're a mammal, they breathe air. And so it was a big confusion as to how can they gobble and take in all this water without drowning. And so that's been solved by that little fatty muscle. And here's a mother with its calf, and the calf is quite large. And that calf is in the foreground, and it's actually drifted up to a starfish. You can see that in the photo.
Yes.
So to see a little starfish, it gives scale to the baby humpback, and the mother's kind of sitting off there watching the whole.
I love this image. I love that image. You know, this one too, because of the depth it creates with the calf and the mother behind. It's just a beautiful image.
Thank you. I mean, I'm a total novice when it comes to taking pictures underwater. And, you know, I'm not a great swimmer either, but I'm very motivated, and it's a thrill to see these creatures. And it's an addiction. I totally get how Darren has really built his career. Well, I mean, he's a great above the water photographer, but underwater, he's only a few people on the planet can rival him. Yeah. And there's a shot of me with these, with the whale. I went down with a friend of mine, probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And this is a shot he shot of me.
Wow. So close.
Well, this one even came in closer and kind of just watched me for a little bit. And then when he dove, I nearly had the tail and the barnacles on the tail knock my face mask off my head.
You know, even in the previous image, when you see the eye of an animal, it just is a wonderful connection. No matter we are different species, but there's a connection when you see an eye.
Yeah,
right,
I mean, it's like an elephant. You know, the eyes are relatively small in relationship to the overall size of the animal. so it's startling to see how that great creature is kind of guided by such small eyeballs.
Yeah.
At any rate, so yeah, I went through the files, and actually as I was going through the files to amass these photos to share tonight, I found 3 or 4 photos that I'd forgotten I had taken, and those will find their way into the collection of Wild. And so I've been buried into I like to say I did a deep dive into the archive. I mean, since I've been shooting digital, I'm shot, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of images. And now you go back and you discover photos that you've overlooked in previous encounters. So it's been a good process.
Lovely.
So that was my contribution about Tonga and just talking about what's been on the news as of late. Thai tattoos were part of an article in the New York Times earlier in January. And, I'm always photographing people, and yet the Thai tattoos are something that's indicative of Southeast Asia, China, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand. And the idea is, and these are Buddhist people that do this, but they inscribe in these very ornate tattoos Hindu sayings or philosophy. And it is also, if the purveyor, the wearer of these tattoos lives a clean and wholesome life, these tattoos are believed to protect their health and protect them. So it's beyond ornamentation. It's actually a belief system that they are being protected by these religious sayings. And on the bottom of the person in the middle, you can see his neck, and that's where these tattoos begin. There's a spiral that is the beginning of these very ornate tattoos.
I love this image. This image to me, art is like layers of art, because you have the tattoos on the backs, which itself is art, and then you have composed the 3 bodies in a way that adds more compositional depth to it. It's amazing.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I saw these guys on the street, and I just asked if I could photograph them, and we set up a time a few days later, and I found a place in downtown Bangkok where I could lay them out on the street and photograph straight down, and they were very willing and able to do it. I offered them just a little bit of money for their time, and these are on the same people. So these religious sayings, also there's animal motifs that are embedded in a lot of these words and letters, and quite ornate.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Tattooing worldwide is such an amazing thing. All right, I already did Tonga. So now I'm going to talk about the Salar de Uyuni. The Salar is an amazing place that I started going down, good 20 years ago. And when I first went to the Salar, and I should say it's a vast soda lake that is down in Bolivia. And I went down because I was working on books about surreal landscapes. And I have to say, when I went down, there was nobody down there. We rented a car in La Paz and drove down. And then for 2.5 weeks, Gabriel Jacon and Aldo Brando, who's a Colombian, and myself, we brought our tent. We had freeze-dried food. We had to be autonomous because there was no infrastructure. There was no hotels to support us. And now there is. They've in the waning 25 years or so, hotels have come in, and it supports people because you can get lost in this area. And the Salar is on the Altiplano, which is the high plain of the Andes. So it lies between 2 branches of the Andean mountains that runs north and south, and it's averaged between 11 and 16,000 feet. So it's very cold, very austere, extremely dry, and it's not going to Kauai and laying on the beach. It's just a magnificent high mountain desert. Have you heard of it? Have you heard of it?
No, first time.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard of Bolivia, but not this particular place.
Okay, so it's not easy to get to. You either fly into La Paz and you rent a car and you drive down south, or you fly into the coastal city of Chile, and then you drive up over the mountains into the Altiplano. And this is part of that drive.
There is a place I remember, Travels to the Edge, that I'd watched a few, and I believe had an episode in which
Yes.
you photographed the lake that turns red.
Yes, and that's this lake right here.
Oh,
Called Lago Colorado. Although there's not much color in this particular image, if you look at the reflections of these flamingos who are at rest, you can see an orange-like reflection, and that orange belies the fact that the waters are red, and the red comes from the tiny crustaceans that are red in color. And so the flamingos eat the red crustaceans and their plumage becomes brilliant red during mating. It's at around 14,000 feet. So you pass the Salar or the Lago Colorado, and then you eventually hit this vast salar. And the salar again is like a ancient lake that has filled up with minerals over millions of years, and the water then gets crowded out. So let me read a little bit about the salar, and then I'll tell you why we are talking about it tonight, okay? So Bolivia has 1/4 of the world's known lithium. So this gives you the clue as to why it's been in the news. The indigenous Quechua people revere the Salar de Uyuni, 4,000 square miles of salt flats that their forebears believe were the mixture of a goddess' breast milk and the salty tears of her baby. So that's their kind of historical connection to this place. Lithium is a basic component of lithium-ion batteries, enabling the flow of electrical currents. Because of the metal's lightweight, long life, large storage capacity, and easy recharging, demand is expected to grow exponentially over the next decade. So I'm reading this, obviously it's a mouthful, but I want to get through it because then I can show you some photos of this place. Lithium can be both mined from ore and extracted from salt deserts. Both carry environmental risk. Again, this was part of a New York Times story about this place that many people don't know much about. Extraction from salars is as follows. Lithium containing salt water from underground lakes is brought to the surface and evaporates in large basins. The remaining saline solution is further processed in several stages until the lithium is suitable for use in batteries. The impact of this extraction on local freshwater aquifers has not been adequately studied. And that is part of the drama here. Australia, Chile, and China are the top lithium producers in the world. At the center of the lithium extraction is the vast amount of water that is used to produce it. The technology must be created so clean energy demands do not create greater environmental harm, even though its intention is to do good. So that is what the salar is. And what is my contribution here is I've been there three times, and you're right, I did a story on Travels the Edge on it. And you can see it's just this vast, white, dramatic Spartan landscape. In the month of April, rains come to this area and leach down the surrounding mountains and fill in portions of this ancient lake. So it creates this perfect reflection area. And you think, oh my God, how are we going to get around it? Because the road ends here. And in fact, you can drive straight through it because it's only 1 or 2 inches deep. So you can create this amazing abstraction of walking in this vast sea, but you're above the water. So it's it's really contradicts what your eyes are telling you to the reality that you can walk on this water.
Is there any other place like this on the planet that you've been to?
Not to this extent. In fact, I've never actually seen anything as vast as this. And at one time, this salar connected hundreds of miles north to Lake Titicaca, which still has fresh water in it. And you may know that name by the fact that Thor Heyerdahl got reeds from that Lake Titicaca, fashioned a raft, and went from Easter Island back to the coast of South America a long time ago. I was just a boy when this happened, but there's reeds in the Lake Titicaca that the local inhabitants, First Nations up there, used to go out on the lake. So that's all connected at one time. But from my perspective, I saw some early photos and said I had to get down there because it's such a dramatic and interesting landscape that at the time I went, had been really underexposed. And so since I've been down there, it's been in my TV shows, it's been in my books, and consequently now a lot of people have discovered it. I'm partly responsible, but we want people to go down there because the more people that visit it, that respect this area, that want to have it stay the same, they'll be up in arms when huge mining efforts are extracting the salt. And I think you can do both. I think the lake is, or the salar is large enough that where they mine the salar is one thing, but there's other areas which are part of a preserve now, that even the places where I camped, and you can see that high bump in the center, that is one of a couple of islands in the salar, and they have ancient candelabra cactus, as you'll see in a minute. So here we're on one of those islands. So you're in an island in a lake, but that's no longer a lake. So you can walk from the island out over solid land. So it's, again, a very surreal location. The candelabra cactus are, some of them are over 900 years old.
Wow.
So it's very, very different environment, and a forest of cactus. And then there's the, oh my God, what are these? Biscachas, I think. They're a giant animal that looks like, a giant meaning a supercharged rabbit-like animal that lives in the high altitudes of the Andes.
A lithium-powered rabbit.
There you go. The Energizer Bunny. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I was down there the first time, 25 years ago, of course, it predated digital cameras. So, and I know we've got 5 minutes, so I'm accelerating through here. This is an 8-hour exposure of stars moving across the sky. And I can always remember because I was using a headlamp and I illuminated the first cactus in the foreground, and then I turned off the headlamp, went to the next one, and every time I turned off the lamp, you can bet the baby cactus were nailing me in my shins. And so I persevered. I went all the way up the slope, got as many cactus as I could, illuminated, and then went down the backside. Now we have a digital era. And so on my last trip, I shot a time lapse. And so here is like a less than a minute time lapse of the light going down, the stars coming up, and the moon actually luckily came up behind that one cactus, but we had no idea where the moon was coming up. But this is just all these different exposures taken. Now you see the stars moving across, and then eventually, oh, come on. Now the
nice.
moon came up.
Oh,
actually,
nice.
that actually didn't work. Let me try that one more time.
Yeah.
Because that's supposed to work far better. Come on, the moon should be coming up. Come on, the moon. Nope. Okay, well, we tried. Anyway, now you see the moon coming up behind it. That was part of the little video that we had malfunctioned. Anyway, just a few pictures of people walking out there. I'll never forget the first time I was down there. There were 2 Jeeps full of Israeli soldiers. And I'm up photographing the cactus, and suddenly both the men and the women Israeli soldiers disrobed completely. So they're naked as jaybirds, and they created a pyramid of like 5 people at the bottom. Next row was 4, next row was 3, and 1 person on top. And I think this was a thing to do because in Israel, they would have seen a photo of that. And so vacationing soldiers get, after doing their service, they get to go on a worldwide trip. And South America is pretty safe for Israeli soldiers. So it was unexpected. This is what is really the charm of the place, is these hexagonal shapes of the salt crystals on the surface of the salar.
Beautiful.
Very surreal. But when I went down there, I was photographing for a book called Edge of the Earth, Corner of the Sky. And these piles of salt that were scraped up into rounded piles, as the salt crystals dry, they fall down and they eventually create these beautiful pyramidal shapes. And so here the film crew is photographing me as I'm talking to the camera. And as the light got later, it becomes this really out-of-worldly environment.
Beautiful.
Yeah, isn't it amazing?
It's real. It's beautiful.
And now the people that scraped this salt up into these piles were not thinking of lithium at the time. they were gathering salt. They dry it and then they package it up and they send it up to La Paz and other South American cities. So they're
don't pause on this image. Pause on this image. The reason I'll say art is many years back I watched Travels to the Edge, PBS TV series, and I distinctly remember this particular image etched in my brain. It's a beautiful image. And some images you never forget, and this is one of them for me.
Yeah, I think it led a lot of people down there. And then the demand was so great that they started putting in hotels, igloo type hotels. They're quite nice. So I encourage people to go down there. In fact, it's my last photo tonight. So you had me pause on the very end of the program. So
beautiful.
Is there any, what are you doing, Kyle? Are you ending me hour or a minute early?
I'm trying to stop your sharing.
Oh,
but I can't find the cursor.
The cursor.
I'm just going to just read out a few comments, and then I do have a couple of questions. I don't recollect who asked them, but as I was on the side monitoring, there are a couple of questions that I'm just going to raise, and I know we are almost out of time, so I'll be free. From Donna Sama, love Travels to the Edge series. I agree with you, Donna. I've seen it multiple times. Nancy's words are, your work is so unique. I agree. In fact, I just couldn't help but noticing, Art, that the variety of compositions you show, even the Israeli, the two people behind the cactus or the view from the cactus, yes, they're all beautiful, but some of them are just very different, that you would not expect. And that just shows how diverse your compositional range is,
Well, thank you for that. I don't boast, I don't brag. I find it actually troublesome when I see other people kind of like overstating what they've done, but I've always pushed myself to really experiment in all these different genres. So if there's any sense of my own self-awareness, it is in that very fact that I at least am trying things that I'm not, I'm not an expert at, and it keeps things fresh and engaging for me. So thank you for pointing that out.
Linda's suggestion for us all, there is an app for that, sunrise direction, moon directions. I believe, Linda, you're talking about photo pills.
Yeah.
That's a good app.
Yep. And in fact, I have it now on my iPhone, but even the last time I was doing that time lapse, I didn't have an iPhone and I didn't have photo pills. But yeah, it becomes easier and easier to kind of nail those kind of ideas down when the full moon is coming up, where it's going. Again, I'm kind of a stupid guy. And so those kind of technology things are always throwing me for a loop. But at any rate.
Yeah. And then again, Donna, hope they don't farm for the lithium. It'll ruin the whole area. I think, Art, you addressed that.
I think it's vast enough that there'll be still vast areas that you would never even see the mine. And there's other areas. And in fact, the United States can also mine lithium. They can create in areas that are kind of marginal from a scenic point of view, they still can use the salt and the sun and mine lithium. So anyway, it's the wave of the future. And, there's no green energy that comes without exacting some sort of price.
Yeah. Srikanth Srinivasan saying hi from Cochin, Kerala in India. And and Srikanth had a suggestion for us to consider, which I think we should consider, which is, can we pause a second between each photos, because they see the subtitles for each photo and then the subtitles go away, so if we can pause between second, I guess I just turn this into a question for all our viewers is, do you want the subtitles? Because I think there might be a way for us to even turn off the subtitles if it's not of value. Are
there subtitles or is she asking about like the title, like Tonga?
No, the subtitles. I think the way we stream Art, there is a setting in which automatically whatever you are saying, the words you're saying turns it into subtitles as an option on our side, which the viewers can see. So maybe.
Oh, I don't even see that. I didn't even, I was not even aware that there's subtitles. So let me just said that we can turn those off.
Yeah. So everyone watching, just give us a thumbs up on if you want subtitles or if you don't, and then we'll just go with the majority. And if we do decide to have subtitles, it's a good idea, Srinivas, is we might keep each image just a second extra so we can all see the images, and not have the subtitle cover the images.
What is the subtitle? Is it like one line, or what?
It translates everything you're saying.
Oh, well, I had a
automatic.
mouthful tonight because I was
technology. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It always doesn't always do the best job.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
And then there was one question about the Tonga, and I don't recollect who asked because it's up in the chat now, which is what happens because of the earthquake? What happens to the underwater, animals in terms of food supply and things like that to all the whales and other animals?
I have no knowledge about it, although I can surmise that, whenever there's an eruption, it creates havoc. But over time, the nutrients from the lava actually enhances the soils on these islands. Rains will wash the ash into the soil and the nutrients will benefit, I believe. And I don't think that it will harm too much the undersea plants. I could be wrong, but my thoughts are this is part of the Ring of Fire. Volcanoes down in that part of the world extend all the way up the east coast of Asia through Japan onto the Aleutian Islands and all the way down to Mount Rainier above my house here. And so eruptions have been occurring, and in that part of the world, in Tonga, it's been happening over the last decade. And so I think it's not going to create much of an issue.
Interesting.
Except for those 3 people that drowned.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. For them, it's a big deal.
Yes. For them, it's a real big deal.
Yeah. Hey, back to the subtitles, I think that each person on Facebook can turn them off if you want to. Let me look into it. And then next time, if you can't all find out how to turn them off, we will provide some instructions for when we start. If you want to turn off the subtitles, that way each viewer can decide if you want to subtitles.
Are my own words obscuring my photos?
Can you believe it? It's
Wow,
the images.
I had no idea.
Pick your poison.
Yeah, I think people should turn off the subtitles.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I think the last just comment as we end on this one is from Nancy. Your knowledge base is amazing. What a wonderful show. Thank you, Art. And I think that captures today. So I just thought I'd end on that one. So thank you all. Thanks, Art.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next month. And again, we will try to make this always as consistently as possible the last Tuesday of every month. And hopefully Parimal comes back because it's our rapport and our mutual respect that helps drive the show.
Absolutely. I missed the last 2 because of this house thing, but now it's well in control. And I can't wait, to set up my home with all the right lighting and everything for both Art Wolfe Life and Earth is Our Witness. So I will not be missing any of these. So
all right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.